I have just realized that by promoting my theory of energetic beam, which corresponds to protocol ET that we saw in the movie ET, when ET was passing by the flowers and the flowers just become alive. There were concentration was radioactive in the context of concentration of life energy within his body. Basically, that's I introduce here the different theory of origin of the life on this planet versus the biblical one. The biblical speaks about God created the earth, and then the water, and then the sky above the earth. And also Bible does have some very dictating narrative. It is very somehow masculine, and it's very humane in a way. In a way, it is somehow totalitarian. It is chauvinistic. It is exactly how fraternity society exists on the planet. But fact is that the planet is not made out of just male, but female. In the Bible, female is made out of rib of Adam, and it is being given very much second and subordinated place. Man is much more powerfully and strongly positioned in Bible and in that theory of creation. The point is that we have not been living, that this present civilization is not accepting Bible as a beginning, not officially. It has been actually accepted by Vatican, as I also understand, the theory of Darwin. So an evolution, by evolution. That's not exactly Bible and God creator. In any case, what is important, what I would like to notice here is that I basically happen to bring that level of disagreement now with the present establishment, which I was not that much aware actually. And that is going to make any kind of reconciliation actually much harder. As I understand, I'm being expected to return to that kind of fraternity-driven protocol, although it is much more translated to some kind of political, cultural definition. As I understand, that level of religious Christianity is actually claiming the territories, still of my birth inclusive. That is now where I have to disagree. That is when it comes to my right to return home. How far that would mean that I will need to be squared or automatically accepted, or should I say retained as a hostage to such belief system? Or do I have right to return home with my belief system? I think that we live all as free citizens, and although I'm being born in by religious rule, I think my grandmother was by secret bringing us all three kids in church to be Christian. The fact is that socialism was not recognizing I was not making it compulsory. A registry was happening at the administration of the State Department, at the relevant registry for birth and marriages and death certificates is issued by the state, not by the church. I think everywhere in the world today is like that. Why I would perceive it as admitting to fraternity and to religion? I'm not a religious person. I'm not practicing religion actively. I'm not actively practicing religion. I'm not convinced enough to devote myself. I'm not devoting that much to any of that. I might study it one day to be informed, not out of admitting to it. I'm going to find that as just legally incorrect, someone to condition me on in such way, someone to condition my return home on such and such parameters. I don't need to play per rules of fraternity society. A religion returned to these territories out of fashion rather than out of really studying religion. None of them is studying religion, but there's so much because of some kind of reinvented reason to socialize out there. They started to do all of this kind of religious meetings and celebrations. And it's just for the sake of celebration rather than for believing in religion. And they're just because of the ritual. Returning to it because of the ritual, not because they really believe in it. And it's nothing of that they really believe in it. If people in Orthodox really believe in religion, they would be studying it. Go and make research how many of Orthodox people are studying religion. None. 0.1%. For someone that is not seriously devoted to religion, to now condition my returning home on such ground is absurd. I'm not going to take it seriously because they're not taking it seriously. Unless there is some kind of Jewish influence there from the one returning from Hollywood eventually, which will need to be reminded if they return under my call on our territories. They're actually returning to Olymp, not to their hill of Sinai. And I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm making the call. And that call is to return to Olymp, not to return to that theory of Bible, of creation of world and how the world has been created. Because that is how Israel finds in the land itself in the land of fraternity. And then ends there as a puppet. Literally. And then the best movie you're making is Sex in the City. Excuse me, that's complete fraternity protocol. That's Iran, that's Babylon. Orchestrating the entire Bible. Yeah, Babylon for Bible. Exactly. Exactly and precisely. I'm not returning to any of it, neither I can promise that kind of umbrella for these people. Let's be reminded, we are returning to Olymp, not to Bible, of fraternity society. Okay, it is very important to be noticed here. And my answer to fathers, or father, which obviously today has become Israel, is exactly that. It is exactly that. That kind of answer. I'm not returning to Olymp like literally returning. I'm talking geographically returning. Not ideological, because there is not much to return there. in some kind of historical parameter. It is what it was recorded is complete mess. Otherwise, in any case scenario, we don't return to something as old to millenniums. We provide our latest answers. We return to territories, but not to actual ideology. Ideology is us in the present times and what we make out of our present reasoning. As our reasoning improves with the time and our answers, our mental configuration will be different. We cannot pledge to old mental configuration because it doesn't make sense, because it's not how it works. You cannot accept mental configuration of your grandfather. Let aside of millenniums old mind of these men. That's absurd. And why people would be doing it? When we have intergenerational conflict with your parents, you see it's completely different mental configuration from one generation to another. Let aside 2 millenniums. I mean, that's enormously stigmatic, frozen in time, mental protocol. It's okay to have it as a historic book. It's better than to be burned and not to know how the people have been thinking previously. But that is testimony of nothing else but how people have been thinking previously. And how we think today, well, with that much of a science revealed now, we think how we should be thinking. The magic of the universe is much more under the spell of the energy than under the spell of some kind of physical God. Even if there is metaphysical levels, they rather appear in format of family than format of one man dictating the rules in a family, like it is in older times. You go in some old villages, somewhere in more remote control, still grandfather in charge of the tribe. In Iran is like that. We can employ that rule now in New York, but the fact is that is exactly how behind the back they have been doing it. As a result of what, Hillary Clinton could have not been elected for a president because the masonry was ruling the entire America and still is ruling the entire America, masonry, which is profoundly male chauvinistic society and drive on some kind of biblical rooting of Babylon. Yeah, as of from now, I'm going to remind you that Bible sign sounds like Babylon. And in substance is Babylonian. Because it's profoundly male and to the extent that these males rather are closer to homosexuals. And that's why they cannot stand a woman. You see, these men, they speak of woman like she is disease. I'm just listening yesterday one Mason of a higher ranking, Serb origin. I mean birth, born in Serbia. He was speaking of woman, and there's a second when he mentioned how it was not possible to elect even Kamala Harris today because she's a woman, above all. But the way how he said it, you can notice this person cannot stand a woman. He can't stand a woman. He speak about Bazin. He speak about his Bazin being left in Hollywood now. Well, the house burned, but at least his Bazin being left. He mentioned the Bazin, but he can't speak a woman. We talk about that much of that kind of moral departure. It's genetic, that is organic departure from what on this planet appear as the first natural law. That is that this planet is planet of a woman, or let's say even if it is because of muscle, so certainly not because of mind, that we put a man on the first place. I would say a woman. Here I have, I have son, because of my son. I'm going to say men. And still men is stronger physically. So let's give them a credit. Men, a woman, and child. That is the format on the protocol human on this earth. But when it comes to mind, we may easily, and the fact that woman gives birth physically to a child, we may easily say woman, man, and child. Because very often we spell out first a woman out of respect to a woman. So we usually say woman, man, and child. In any way, front man is usually man. I mean, it's more like guardian. So let's say man, woman, and child. But to have these people that go out there to speak about political power, maybe they think in that way of it because it is about guardianship. But you don't see that these people are talking just about guardianship, which is military. They're talking also about managing the house. And we all know, when it comes to managing the house, who is more talented? Naturally. Yes, naturally. When it comes to managing the house, much more talented naturally is a woman rather than a man. Managing society does have its external, but also does have its internal function. And when president elected, it is in charge of both the function, not just of international, but also on national. And here you have the elected President Trump, and he immediately started to talk about international function, that is male instinct of defense protocol, guardian, immediately started to deal with international. I say, well, there's nothing wrong about it, yes. The fact is that when it comes to internal function, he just brought billionaires. That's a lot more like he brought the cork on top of the bottle of wine being American people. Yes, that is exactly what he has done. If it was a woman would trigger instinct of managing the house. So therefore, the president in substance will need to, it is better when the president is female, and then she is going to appoint defense minister, and defense minister will be doing what Trump is doing now. That would be defense minister. Defense minister will need to be equally strong person. Yes, equally strong person. So Donald Trump can be defense minister. Why not? What's wrong about it? But from position of playing apprentice would be equally enough advancing. I mean, from hotelier honor to defense protocol, I don't see that being wrong. Although I don't think that he is that much after defense protocol either. I think he is after building hotels. That is nothing of promise for a nation to be healthy building. Nothing of a promise to a nation. To be governed healthy. It doesn't matter from perspective of how I bring this discussion, doesn't really matter who is officially elected president, because in substance, in all of the times you have White House of America, which is completely Masonic state. Masonic formation, which makes America completely Masonic formation. So it really doesn't matter which political party would be winning. The fact is that we have all of the America under scrutiny today, under discussion, because the White House of America is profoundly Masonic house, and that in substance translates to Babylonian house. Because these are sons of father. Masons are not Masons, they are sons of father playing here a game of humiliating woman and preventing woman, that is the queen, the next queen, to get the power. Masons are Babylonian-owned society that are engaged equally as the high school boys were engaged in my life here. to prevent promotion of woman, to prevent next reincarnation of woman. And to keep Western society, which is player of the planetary civilization, and somehow is owner of Western of the planetary civilization. It's front runner of planetary civilization, to be actually very much Babylonian defined and Babylonian driven society. We cannot accept that answer, and that is why America is today to be questioned. As I understand, BRICS are promising now to be somehow some kind of replacement, but when you notice, these are equally not, they are equally driven by religion, especially Catholics, which is good space is given to South American countries which are Catholic. Russians also reincarnate out of fashion into Orthodoxy again. Muslim countries are much more religious, actually. None of BRICS countries, China is obviously the only force there that is not that much attached to religion. But I'm not sure that BRICS countries are going to depart too much from fraternity society, because they are driving on oligarchies as well, and that is criminal. And the birthplace of all of the oligarchies and all, therefore the criminal associated is associated with birthplace of capitalism altogether, which is therefore the imperial story, or the story of fallen previous empire, which has been replaced with biblical empire, that is with Babylon. Now I'm going to see Babylon basically the entire territory of beginning of life on earth is accordingly fabricated, and it is fabricated upon the event of Babylonian society taking over, Babylonian society in the format of Roman imperialism taking over Macedonian empire. It all comes to that now, and with it replacing the entire value system and system of collecting money and of creation of building a power, which is completely based on exploitation of the previous. Oh, the previous would have been much more sustainable, I'm going to assume. Much more sustainable. Also, we find some breaking lineage with India. I'm not going to give to India too much of credit either, because I found it too cloudy. Also, there is some kind of wisdom about how the universe eventually function, or how it functions in certain times where certain mental configurations have been taking place. I think that the moment we get into Buddhism, we cannot exclude China and Japan as well. And Buddhism is not only Indian story. It is basically value system of all of the Far East countries as well. So if I find Buddhism before Olymp, although clearly historically it has been recorded that Buddhism is happening later. It is happening somewhere in 6th century after Christ. Now that is of course to be now, time in this case scenario appear to be rather relative. I mean, people have been just using these historic references out of blue, literally. Fact is that when it comes to Buddhism, the attention is much more to a more abstract subjects. When it comes to Olymp, it becomes much more about managing the realm as a political platform. As a political platform. And I'm going to find that critical momentum of, that is why I criticize, I find myself criticizing usually India, not Buddhism, because India is a state and declares itself as a state of Buddhism strongly. So I'm basically criticizing India for holding too much to Buddhism on the subjects of politics. And also I'm criticizing India that as a matter of political organization and organization of the societies, they are not exactly the best organized platform and something that can be used as an example of managing societies. They have a variety of their theories about healthy lifestyle, which all that can stand in certain parameters. As, for example, how often to wash your hands. I'm especially arguing with India on that particular matter. But the fact is that I will certainly criticize India in the way how, will notice rather, that India is not holding the highest place when it comes to organizing the living space, the society itself. The living space look to me quite messy, too much natural, organic, but when it comes to managing now billions of people as how many population they have, it ends up to be quite messy. And I can't find India getting too much high place when it comes to managing societies accordingly. Well, I'm going to find Olymp on the other side very seriously building exactly on managing societies and bringing women here as a naturally talented for such matters. I'm going to find Olymp that continue to be used actually as a foundation to any monarchy house of Europe. Basically, as the underlying force that is actually defining Western civilizational approach. And at Babylon there, it is just that usurpator that is striking a woman in these 2 millenniums of time, literally, and relate to woman like a woman is some kind of unwanted creature on its own planet. That is where it's going to go very harsh critiques to Babylonian societies, to Babylon itself, and to anyone that continue to follow Babylonian society, especially Serbia I'm going to find here. And in lineage, obviously, America. Very much aligned with Serbia, although I have been thinking with Macedonia, but no, you go in England and you go in America. It is actually all aligned with Israel and Serbia because Serbia is in lineage with Israel and they are equally such kind of religious fanatics holding to the skirt of their grandfather sitting somewhere in Babylon. And that's not going to be good enough for us to convince us that that is the correct answer to how we should be accepting either the answer of how the life on this planet started, or who is going to play God, or are we going to accept God as a protocol on this planet, or we are going to actually accept the energy protocol as a protocol of creation on this planet, and then adopt freely, normally, the protocol man, woman, and child as a modern approach to modern living and modern organization in the present times, without obligation to pledge to some kind of old grandfathers that somewhere in the villages of Iran still control the entire village, the entire tribe, as the oldest men. We can accept such rules in Western world, but as a matter of facts, that is exactly how it works. And that is a devastation, which I I can't accept simply. Even less I can accept someone on my home country to condition me on religion on the land that never was that much religious, especially when we're speaking of Macedonia, as I'm being born in Macedonia, and I am not that much interested to return to Serbia anytime soon, especially understanding that they have become even more religious fanatics. I'm certainly not going to be interested to go return there. As I understand, they found themselves rather trapped in all of that Muslim influences for a very long period of time. Somehow betrayed even by West, which we understand is actually under Muslim influence for quite some time. So basically Europe is in some kind of sandwich here when it comes to this Muslim slash Iran slash Babylon driven cultural setting. One layer being Middle East, the other layer being England and America, USA, as ruled by the power of capital and power of finance, which in substance, we discussed for 2 millenniums have become a matter of generation of primary principal initiation of capital by using the unhonorable using a woman as a driver for profit generation. That is basically prostitution. That is basically trading women and kids, as we understand, and young men for that matter, and for literally that level of the most elementary, most basic form of initial capital generation, upon which they grow further capitalism and financial system that still rely on such primitive, and profoundly undignified foundations. What is surprising me is the resilience to which the systems are not responding to this critique and continue to talk of me as I am the loser. First of all, I don't play personally with anything here. This is a matter of belief systems. And people should be speaking in reference to what really is losing here versus what. Or otherwise, they would be continuing accepting to live in a wonderland or in a Disneyland and then call themselves responsible and grown-up human beings. For God's sake, provide the frame of your mental configuration before you waste our time for another day. Provide first your mental configuration for your own sake and for the sake of anyone that is supposed to admit in your circles. Provide to this planet your mental configuration. As that is previous times, it would have been you introduce yourself to what religion you belong. Now you have to introduce to what theory of beginning of life on earth you belong. Yeah, let's make it simple. Before then we spend a couple of hours listening your latest elaborations. Let's provide your mind configuration first, please. But to condition me to what I'm going to return, if I decide to, when I go, of course, I'm going to visit my home countries. Anyone's visiting their home countries? Visiting. Someone is not going to condition me, oh, if you go there, you're not going to get out. Excuse me? Excuse me. What that means? I can't follow what's happening there now? Or you are influencing my life here and you're influencing the life of my kids. I have a right to go and check what on earth is going there because I can notice that you are influencing even the life of my kids. That's too much of me ignoring something or giving you time. I can notice you are affecting the life of my kids. For me, there is no stop line now here. And no one can condition me that I am not going to return. I'm not going to visit Babylon. I'm not going to go as a religious person, admitting myself to Babylon or to religion. I'm returning as a citizen, free citizen, to visit my home country and establish some legal platforms on which that territory, unfortunately, continue to roll as a bunch of mental hostages of their own mind, of their own sick, in most cases, sick mind. Or should I call it confused? Let's be a bit more diplomatic. Prisoners of their confused mind. Such people need help, not to condition someone as myself, which clearly demonstrates much more ability for much clearer thinking. One with more blurred mind should not condition the one with more clear mind. It should be other way around. And me and you know very well that that was from the very beginning like that. My mind was much more clear and your mind was much more blurred. How we found ourselves in condition that you surface me here with your blurred mind. You poor things. You poor things. You poor things. This last time that you are going to illusionize, that you are going to condition me on anything when it comes to my return to my country. Instead, I would advise that you devote some time of clearing your mind a bit, so you don't continue to walk as a clowns on this earth for another day. And bring anyone else down with you. Here I also define clearly and loudly what means someone going down and bringing anyone else with them. And what means fighting and trying to save humanity and stay above the previous doomsday approaches. As let's not forget and be reminded again, the previous theory also imposes a 7,000 years cycle of lasting a civilization and ending a civilization when that period ends. And we are reaching exactly that stage. So there is a society of men that are determined in that category of belonging to exactly that category of Babylonian protocol, determined to end this civilizational cycle as well. So we have quite a serious situation here, and it seems we don't have that much time as well. These sick men should be defeated rather than given another term. Again, we don't speak here about just a political party. We talk about all of the White House of America. Although some political parties are obviously much more modern than another, and I got the impression that Democratic Party was listening carefully and was they were trapped in Africa. Africa is even bigger doomsday. Africa is nothing different. Africa was via Babylon, via Commonwealth, was equally impregnated, exactly in the same some kind of brainwashing movement. And basically Africa was the latest empowering to Babylonian societies, the latest power engine. And via Barack Obama, that is what was reincarnating there. And that is why it was impossible for Hillary Clinton to get position, or for me equally to be heard more seriously as a woman versus woman. Even Queen Elizabeth was disabled in what she really wanted to do with what I do here. We have been here completely disabled, and by this format of fraternity society. And I'm going to conclude that West, in substance, would have a certain potential, I believe. Of course would have. There are plenty of intelligent people there that are willing to listen. Of course, West does have potential to get out of its stacking momentum. But we need proper awareness about how this works, where are prejudices, where we have stuck, especially Western platform. White House will need to be completely, I think, declared a historic museum and found some kind of different building, because they're talking about 8 floors. Who knows how many floors under White House, equally as under Buckingham Palace, which is going to make 2 buildings totally inappropriate for continuation, for bringing some kind of new face of our civilization. I think that it will need to be done by choosing completely different locations and starting from beginning. And not paying that much attention to buildings. It will need to be something much more light, I would argue. Much more focus on the actual configuration, on the actual work, rather than on the status buildings. I think that should be dropped from now on. Building status buildings. We rather need to focus on the actual life and leading, managing life, and derive from such kind of old references and old attachments to monuments and symbols, and become swallowed by them in a process, as how it happened right now. Swallowed by the previous belief systems that have become that much of an infrastructure and that much of a symbolic that it took over the actual mental function of a human, which exists within energetic corridors as something much more vibrating, much more changeable, much more something that's not fixed rather than fixed. And what we have been trying to do historically is to fix it, to lock it in a building, and to end up being driven by the buildings rather than to be other way around. So I think it is time to move exactly from such historic references and such historic build-ups. And each time, and from now on and into the future, allow ourselves to be much more devoted to our mental formation. And of course, building living space is always going to be important for us. But speaking now in political terms, as a matter of political conceptual thinking, it should be the approach similar as what we use as approach in building our houses for living spaces. You see, the architecture is changing every 20, 30 years, every 50 years. And we should, in institutional levels, we should not be that much blocked into historic buildings. Governments are okay, I think. But when it comes to castles and churches, I think it is time to develop them into museum houses and move on. Just move on. The culture itself also is very hard to give to Americans winning position, because America happens as much more raw lifestyle, because the terrain of America is like that. The terrain of America is much more hostile, harsh, and would require different kind of stamina, different kind of approach, and would build as a result different kind of characters that would need to respond to such lifestyle. European people will not be the most convenient one for building America. And it should not be like that. I think that Europeans have broken upon the harshness of American terrain, because these are so very, very different terrains. American and European, very different terrains. Probably it was not by accident why Muslim population started to dominate, much more prevail in America, because the terrain in Middle East is much more similar to terrain in America, much more hostile. And these people are much more built to such kind of standards of to respond to much more hostile environment. If not hostile, that is not much friendly, let's say. But European soft mind, body, and soul can very easily break there. And I would suggest that is indicate how important European continent is for Europeans, and that they should actually return to their European continent. Well, when it comes to Americans, I think Americans should actually try to recover and rebuild their America, because they would be matching much more that terrain, and it would be pointless to think of going in Khazaria, for example, now again, because that profile of American soldier, first of all, which is a prototype of Alexander the Great, is nothing of rough and tough. Alexander would have been actually European prototype, and very actually gentle. And you can see the face, his face and his entire body. He would be actually have actually gentle body. And the fact that he died young upon the harshness of the adventure he submitted himself to, indicates that we are talking about gentle body. And now American prototype of American soldier is being made out of that body, which is paradoxical. It is European protocol. America is very harsh terrain. It was very wrong to define American soldier on that prototype. Wrong. That is home protocol, homey protocol. These people are good for farming, building houses, for building their farms and agriculture. Yeah, they're perfect for that. And building house and house life, and in the previous times, and building strong agriculture. They're very handy, they're very talented for building houses and building agriculture, very gifted for that. But to send them in war, they're not good there. It's not just, it's too raw, it's too cruel for them. And just, it burns them out, inside out. And the reason why America was not successful in international wars, I would argue, is because of wrong choice of profile of a soldier. First and foremost, also I would argue that we are beyond times of building soldiers, as we are now about to declare one planet. And we need much more diplomacy and much more intelligence in that political area, rather than in any area. That's not just political, in any area, but not military. Because there is no reason why one is to build military on this planet that should be planet of peace and living together. And I would advise that America stop building its military industry, which is also very much money consuming, but rather to devote themselves to building peaceful technologies, as China is doing, for advancing their life in America, as they have been left quite behind in any single regard. So building much more better economy of recovery would be much more beneficial than economy of war. That's critical. And then the population of America will be equally fine to the extent that they will need in-house approach, house building approach, building cities approach, and for that approach, Americans are perfect for rebuilding. There is no need to go and build Ukraine. There is no need for that. And I really don't know why someone wanted to do something like that. And this place, I understand, families started to be now brought there because in America conditions are unattractive, especially for American army. I started to drag them somewhere in Europe with intention to make that Ukraine again to be of Khazaria. And I really don't. It seems that Israel, some kind of Jewish sect is behind all of that. I'm going to find that simply wrong to the extent that Americans are not exactly Vikings or Normans. That they're not that much notorious, and why on earth someone will need notorious Normans in Khazaria? So they can defend who out there? The Muslims that are crossing Europe now and demolishing Europe. They're going to protect who? The stinky, shitty Shia society. The stinky, shitty Shia society. Seriously? That is ridiculous. That is like my idiotic sister is using me, my brilliant European, not physical. I have not been physical. She has been physical because she was not mindful, for sure. Or she was evil-minded, therefore. Or she was hoping that unworthy thing was hoping to use me to protect the unworthiness of her. No. It doesn't work like that. The one that is lower, I mean, this is individual approach already. So what is wrong here is approach where humans have been observed as some kind of different animals rather than the human, which is one protocol, not as that many animals in a forest protocol. Human is not animalized human. In the way how they're managing human, that is like human animal. That's Disneyland. A human is brought on the level of animal, and then it is being observed as such. No, you observed human as a human. As when you observe monkeys, you're observing gorilla. As human is in that category of mammal. You observe human as a human. And then you notice what kind of humans can be used for what based on individual assessment. A part of that, you talk about function of a state. That is, the state have function, as it is governance, military, police, intelligence, university professors, idle philosophers, legal system, law and order, economy, blah, blah, blah. That is the function in a society, the function. That is where mind in a human get observed, not the body. So this is some very primitive approach, and it is and it went way too wrong into very uneducated trajectory of how this world should be arranged. These societies, it is time to be asked to stay aside from further managing of the house of earth, and that is where I claim the latest function of monarch of earth, and I claim that I'm entitled to bring down these people. That is to ask them to step aside from this kind of politicking of the planet. That would be including all of the Black Rock and alike societies, especially all of the Israel Jewish society. And also you have very Mormonic like very over traditional societies in America, which continue to be governed by some kind of inboxed mind. These societies will need to be asked to pull back from managing the planet on first account as some kind of God level, because these people at the moment are managing Earth as God, from God level, literally. They will need to be asked to step aside. We cannot manage planet from position of some kind of not God that sits on the sky, but God that is in format of these old societies. Most of them completely mentally inconvenient and intellectually inconvenient to perform such highly ambitious and obviously for them very attractive function. It is such damage caused that such fiasco. I just can't understand how on earth something like that could have happened, and how on earth we could have not prevented. And I have been also very much somehow relaxed. I have been too much expecting things to turn their ways by themselves. I could have not believed that matters went so wrong so far, although obviously, evidently, they have been going that far so wrong. I have allowed things to continue to be too loose. I have allowed them to be too loose. And that is my part of mistake. I have permitted them to grow that loose on me. That is my mistake. And I have no intention to repeat it again. I will not accept anything to grow on me further in that loose mode. You're going to hear what I have said today, and you're going to follow it and live by it. Or it will be less else homelands or homelands. You will be wiped out. This last time, you poor things, you're going to condition me on my going home. I go home, you get yourself in order. Can you hear me here well? You get yourself in order. No, I can't accept police investigation. I'm just sick of that word. It's going to be first my appointment, as this is the top of the pyramid. I'm not going to allow Masons to continue to meddle. And also, yes, I have to say that as well. And this is as an order. Stop making animals out of humans. But then we have problem with animals, how to be humans. Well, in order that we stop having problem with humans being animals, someone should stop making humans into animals. Let's get sober, Earthians. The investigation will go in that direction. Stop making animals out of humans. Investigation will need to go in that direction. Investigation will need to go in that direction. There is one more aspect I want to bring forward here. That is how far I am opposing Donald Trump. This is politics. It's nothing personal. On personal level, also it is very hard today even to talk person, because we have become people, most of the people have become such product of the life they have been living and the circumstances of such environment. And inevitably, especially at much more mature stage, you end up discussing a human product of the conditions and circumstances of life, because it is not some baby or child in question, Uh, we are discussing today the systems. I am discussing the place of masonry in the way how I am understanding it. For me, Donald Trump is Mason. I am discussing, that is what I see through his face. I see masonry. That is what I see, I find as very much opposing and strong part of the previous system, which will need to be addressed and it will need to be opposed. And second reason is the hoteliering and hotel as a business. And the third aspect is capitalism itself, which of course solely cannot be addressed to any person born in capitalism. But when someone is such strong capitalist, then it becomes a matter of ideological conflict rather than personal. I'm going to bring that forward. There is no much personal here. On personal level, I'm going to find Donald Trump, yes, as anyone else, rather very positive and friendly nature. But as I can understand, he was training themselves into that format to be positive. The fact is that today we are beyond assessing the personal character of a leader. We end up discussing the program, the protocol, and what is behind all of that. It is very strong political configuration, and I'm discussing the political aspects and the civilizational aspects of it. There is nothing personal, absolutely nothing personal. Whatever is personal, you can't allow it to be any kind of a player, because what we do here is what we do here, and the accent is going to be to what we do here and what will need to be pointed here. To the extent the person here becomes such epitome of what a person does, that is how much is not personal anymore, but in the same time it is personal. That is what happens when you are in mature stage. That is how the story goes. We become what we do. It's not other way around. It is we become what we do. What has become very important today, escalating further, of course, is the inherited from monarchies has become very much a managing of families, literally managing of families, to the extent that that has become via the latest technology actually a business. It has become opportunism. It has shifted certain people on the level of gods, some on the level of wolves, and some on the levels of sheep. One can say it is since the time of religions. That is, again, it's monarchical protocol. Very much has become a matter of treating population as a sheep. Emerges here citizenship platform, although it is English word, it may happen actually later on. That much of awareness. Fact is that monarchies, and England is still very much built as a monarchy, have that approach of managing families. Now that can be also good aspect for good, because they somehow take care of you. You don't end up being lost down. They take care to marry you within the wealthy families. That's like for a main principle of being of monarchical order is that you are being chosen who to marry, and that is a wealthy person. So basically they take care of you in that regard. You don't get lost on the ground too much. And that aspect, one would say, certainly make a difference in one's life, to be taken care of when it comes to the most basic conditions of life. So I can't be too much critical on that particular function. My concern is that today big companies have taken over that function. That is how far they have taken it over. It has become some kind of government-driven platform, and it has become technocratic because, first of all, it lost any kind of blood-related reference. The families become upset. The historic tradition, the historic heritage become upset. The position of the country in international relationships becomes upset. And the idea, the leading idea itself becomes upset. One would argue that these circles would have ways to follow the reincarnations as well. Now, clearly that has been upset as well. I'm not sure that that has been working correctly in the where we found monarchical protocol. Where we found monarchical protocol, it's ended to work against its own interests. Somewhere here with the impact of masonry, or crusaders, should I say, that has been historically, I would argue, that is how it has become interrupted. The much more natural positioning of monarchies to take care of their reincarnations and when and to follow their reincarnations. And when crusaders get on stage and interrupt that protocol, and that would be therefore from the Temple of Israel, which I still connect to the previous Macedonian Empire. I recognize here the main two plates that exist in that entire period have been the ancient Macedonian plateau within imperial terms, obviously, and the other is the emerging Roman imperialism plateau. That is where the takeover becomes the one that is still existing to present times, to which Macedonian Empire imperialism is slave, and it makes Roman imperialism to be still a society of slavery and enslaving people, and that is on the ground of reincarnations in the entire pyramid, the entire hierarchy of the previous kingdom, including the monarchy and how monarchies started. You can say they started much more to reappear on Serbia kind of side, including the one in Russia. Probably that is why they have been kicked out. They ended up to look too much on Serbia side. And Rasputin was like top the top of the glass of the cup. When they I think they have been kicked out because they have been prevailing on the Serbia side. And Serbia tend to be sometimes a bit more loose, while Macedonians can be a bit more pragmatic. It's still very much to individual level. Very, very easily you can say other way around. I mean, it's matter of individual levels. But the fact is that in this case, when you're in a story of two main plateaus as an imperialism protocol, as imperial event, then you have to notice it. This is what will need to be noticed here, and the overall mega scale of events continue to happen in that kind of framework. There is that kind of violation on large scale going on exactly on that line. Violations, literally violations, including reincarnations. Well, there's a critical momentum here, where they continue to be suffocated versus the reincarnations of Babylonians, which are kind of taking over the stage. And you have to notice it becomes even a takeover. No, we don't like the results. The results are too weak. And it is something that exists that much organized as oppressor, as oppression, and as takeover. Somehow it is losing its magic as well. Magic of play of life energies as a free event. When you put something that much in the boxes and implement that much of a hostility between the boxes, it's very hard to speak about some kind of positivism and positive play of energies. It all becomes very negative, a sorrow, a fight, a war, destroying each other, sabotaging each other, preventing each other development, and decline prevails altogether, as they're saying, when the two are fighting, the third is collecting the benefit. That is exactly how that ended to be, exactly like that. I have pointed for quite some time. Here, black and white, which, first of all, these territories cannot be described as black and white. They're rather red and yellow, or red, blue, and white, as we have it on most of the flags. But you can't call them black and white. However, it is being established some kind of black and white recognition of these energies, and it has become epitome of bringing them into conflict and building out of that conflict as a third party. We have to notice that, and we have to prevent. But I wanted to say that tradition of managing families somehow becomes, I'm afraid, now endangered with this, intervention of big companies, these big technologies. Elon Musk looks like it is very much eager to take it over altogether, to go down the line and basically intervene and manage the families, and to play himself a monarch and a master, because in substance, all of these science fiction characters are building on the existing order, which is profoundly monarchy, including where it is Batman and Superman protocol. They're basically reference to monarch. It's all monarchy. They're all driving on that heritage, all the way to Elon Musk and fascism and Nazism. They're driving on exactly searching for that reincarnation. They have been searching for Holy Grail. I'm very sure that at some point of time, they knew, at any of the times, they knew exactly what they're searching for. They're searching for the character. They're searching for the character. And here we talk about managing of humanity, which was traditionally monarchical in some kind of inner circles, a much more family-driven approach. It has become state-driven with socialism, and now with fascism, or rather with capitalism, it has become capital-driven approach. And today, big companies-driven approach. Most of them very much driven by technology. And all of that is going to endangering the future reincarnations, as these people think that they are entitled to provide some kind of robotic manifestation, some kind of virtual reality, or some kind of artificial intelligence protocol rather than real monarchs, because that would allow them maximum game and betting on managing the planet, rather than allow it to happen in the classic human protocol dimension, But when it comes to their companies, they want to be the chairman, they want to be directors, they want to be the main man of a company, they want to get the chair, and they want to sit on the table, and they want to bring the face, and they want to pretend they are the character they ended up to confiscate, usurp, and exploit. And I can't see here anything else but the gorilla taking the stage again, and to notice how resilient Homo sapiens is in all of the times versus what we would recognize as a modern human. And I can't possibly see today Elon Musk and that category of people on the side of modern humans, but on the side of the gorillas, because that is exactly how they behave, and that is exactly where fascism exists on the level of black gorillas of black Africa, and that is why the black color they adore equally as gorillas. There is something in genetics there, reminiscence, call to return. So while some of us are eventually going to return not to Mars, but to our monarchies, some of them are certainly going to go and return to black gorillas, where black color begins for humanity. Of course, monarchy of England, as most of us, especially myself, I find as that being some kind of typical definition of monarchy protocol today, because we certainly function on the visual ground for quite an extent. It is such a visual epitome of monarchy. I would. It will need to be incorporated here. The protocol masonry, which in substance is very much driving in the society woman on second place, as a result of what Queen Elizabeth ended to be and Queen Mary ended to be a reference to the biggest intercontinental ships. Basically, in the way the male society in last century equally was very much mocking a woman around. And also, it has become such place, center of homosexualism, England, which associated, I have to bring it to, in association with Babylon, and I have to accuse Shia population for it. It might be that within the backbone of that entire protocol exists some kind of no gender creature, and that is why it is making that much of confusion. But the woman of earth, a woman of earth, is paying the highest price because of that, and that is why that. Again, as in situation with Trump, there is nothing personal here. But when something interfere or interrupt the entire system, then it is about system being interrupted, not about the particular person. We focus on the problem here. The problem is the system interrupted. And that is where these people need to understand that to the extent that they interrupt the system, they will be addressed because of it. Especially when it is in question something so deliberately organized as some rather strongly developed organization as it is in Masonry, that is deliberately building society by excluding women from right to information. Basically, they're building parallel system in a society that is a society of man, woman, and child, and of families. They're basically building parallel society, which is a society of men, and basically taking power over the woman and the children. As a result of what we have such profound trading of children and women, as these people do not have feelings for a family, for kids including. As these people exist as some kind of very strange phenomenon that would be, you can hardly find in a nature, obviously, unless it is in the world of fishes, always in the world of fishes, you find that level of complete detachment from a female or from a family, from a concept of family. And that is where we lose the human protocol. To the extent that someone on this point was profoundly playing with genetics of animals and upsetting the genetic of human with genetic of animals, we have these abnormalities happening in the population. It is irrational to speak about any kind of extraterrestrial when all of that is quite terrestrial. It is rather terrestrial. It is rather manipulation of the code of human, of some kind of standard template of code of human, standard code of human, which there is no reason why we would not suppose exist equally as in the way how other diversity of flora and fauna existed in this overall energetic beam of overall creation of this real, of life energy. There is no reason not to believe that human would exist as well. Or they want to say exist something like humanoid, but then you need to change, like in Avatar, projected in Avatar, but then you have to introduce the gorilla and give the template human. As they're arguing some extraterrestrials, well, they might be terrestrials as well. Why not they need to be extraterrestrials? They might be terrestrials as well at some point. Came to such results. Well, and it might be of the recent history as well. It doesn't have to be that much far away history. In any case scenario, not that we have photography of how previous humans looked. In any way, lucky us, we have solidly humans today. So there is no need to assume that there would not be human protocol, human happening within its exact form as a human, as we see it today, in some kind of most ideal format. There is no reason not to believe in that, as well as an option. I mean, if a force could have created a gorilla, why they would not create the human as well? I mean, why they would stop at gorilla? If someone look for perfection. Like here we are, someone look for perfection. Maybe it is just our mind. Maybe some kind of self-recalibration. Maybe it's self-refinement. Maybe it's just the way how the time and our mental energy reshape us altogether. Maybe it becomes as a result of beauty of our mind. In any case scenario, the evolution, which is energetic rather, and driven on the premises of energetic, that is mental consciousness, might well be we are these people, not some other people on some other planet. That's my point. In some kind of self-mental recalibration. In that context, my point again would be that the concept of driving humanity or managing humanity will need to be very much based on recognizing monarchy at correct as in its most correct formation. And I'm not sure that we are going to find monarchy of England sitting in that there. I would be rather returning to Olymp, where the influence of Babylon, which we recognize as does have element of departure from standard human, started. And that is the time zero. Accordingly, I'm returning monarchy at point of Olymp, where we bring the protocol, where we introduce a woman again in our protocol human, and where we bring much more fair play when it comes to role of men and women in a society, and importance of kids and raising and looking after kids as we have it in our societies, unlike in Muslim societies, for example, or as we understand in Western societies that are built on Muslim template, that we have such neglect of kids that goes even in direction of violating kids or not having developed proper sense for kids, neither proper sense so for women, which might be addressed to more fish-like characters in the genetics of a human. This is going to give to blue men or blue woman not that much of a highest place. And although I find myself born in such family that where the surname is blue, in translation blue man, or it is basically blumen, rather a reference to flower. Actually, that's not my absolute. That's what I have chosen. My family surname is New Vales. New Vale. So I'm going to notice it is in question of Vale. I think whales are mammals. Whales are mammals. That is, there is a male and female male. I have not checked upon their reproduction habits, but being a mammal to me is rather out of the critical zone. In any case scenario, I have to point out here that with my work, I bring these subjects on clarification, and I'm bringing forward importance of woman in overall of the creation. Found the flower there in the surname hiding somehow as well, within the double meaning of the words, where in our language, kit can also means kita, and kita is reference to bunch of flowers, and bunch of flowers is very much reference to, first of all, I would say beauty, then I would say gentle nature, and then also reference to monarchy, reference to garden of flowers, reference to nature, reference to green forest, reference to that level of life energy that exists within some kind of respect of beauty, and it is a bit much more specific. It is much more advanced rather than much more raw nature. Also in Pacifica, you have people also very much, female dancers, for example, very much aware of flowers. Also, it has been established some connection with New Zealand. Pacifica nations are quite significant on flowers. But we have much more developed monarchical orders and imperial orders, and I really found myself too much busy to be inspired to return to Pacifica roots. I just found myself too busy. It's certainly in my schedule somewhere later on, when I hope I'm going to be more free for traveling. and understand and learning more about different cultures and nations, which is of course gorgeous. And I've been talking many times how all of us admire the diversity of creation of this earth, and it is admirable, obviously. But I have been really busy keeping up to where we need to be today, because so much is on stake, and our kids found themselves living in a very unsafe world. So it was our call to be where we need to be today, to provide that next generation safeguard for our kids. And time is running. We don't have time. It's too much to be done. I'm going to recognize that obviously the energies are moving, or we all have everywhere on the planet similar relationship versus the nature, or similar way of noticing nature and celebrating nature. In Europe also we have very developed tradition of worshipping nature. As you're aware, even entire Bible actually, and celebration Bible has been created. If we just exclude Babylonians, if I focus on Jewishness, it has been based very much on noticing and celebrating the dynamics of 4 seasons in our territories. We have 4 seasons, and therefore celebrating the lifestyle through the 4 seasons in a year. And all of that implemented very much in the way how one in the Bible itself, in the way how someone, they started to translate, to give a bit of a metaphysical meaning to these different periods of a year, and has become a bit overwhelming. It has become a bit mental, and we found ourselves in a bit of a mess there as well. Even if I start talking sacrificing and things like that, well, madness kick off. It's heavy time, and we are living it today. It's a heavy time that we live today, of complete confusion. I wanted just to say, since I somehow reached monarchy as something much more natural when it comes to managing the families rather than big companies, especially big tech companies now, which is even much more scarier. Equally, I needed. It is important to point out that returning to monarchy of England is not going to be the best approach. Also, I'm going to notice that Queen Elizabeth has done gigantic jump by declaring female order of masonry, and it is something to be commended. It is what a person of such ranking would be expected to do, and she did it. And I just learned yesterday, and I'm very happy for it. I'm very happy to hear that. Yeah, it certainly is giving to England a second chance, and that's a really big event. I don't know how much there is here some kind of calculation by all men society to continue all of the same, as I have not noticed. You can't say it has not. I mean, you can see the next generation is certainly much rather confused, and certainly the men are more gentle, the young sons are more gentle, and they're certainly much more interested to bring the latest vibe. Also, we in England, there is plenty to be undone from the previous damages, and one really, no matter where you are, you are going to find yourself busy undoing things. What is a second problem with England is that they have too much of old buildings, and they certainly have underground situation as well. It makes it much harder to pull out from the previous. The older life forms are more chauvinistic. They would be in the world of animals, or closer to animals. If we are returning again to some kind of Darwinism and reptilians, we find reptilians in some chain existing for one reason or another. There, the order in the family is going to be much more traditional, equally as it is in Babylon. It would be much more driven on the dominance of men. As you can see, among gorillas as well, you see how gorilla male profoundly dominates the male for the female. Our Homo sapiens, in all of the historic terms, was nothing better. So we are still in that struggle for a woman to become liberated from such narrow-mindedness of a man rather, and physical dominance rather than mind dominance. Because man does not command or dominate woman by mind, but by physical force. And that one would say that's kind of God level of language, but in any case scenario, the universe is a rather complex event. And the fact that female energy and consciousness and overall existence is much stronger on creativity, but also configuration and making certain kind of order, even scientific. It's certainly playing around with a concept of man and woman, or it is still trying to bring some kind of balance, and that is that no one gets more than another, but it is just present in different dominance of their own dominion. Each dominate its dominion. The male is much more outdoor, female is much more indoor, and each dominate its own dominion. So that is what we need to conclude today. And yes, I think that returning to Olymp is going to give us a better climate, first and foremost, much more free space to build something new, better strategic positioning that is going to bring cultures much more engaged and inspired to contribute, to participate. It is easier, therefore, to accomplish what the aim would be, planetary protocol. It will be easier to engage international community because there is nothing from the previous to meddle with you or to confuse you and to confuse anyone. I think we reached that stage where there are so many issues that will need to be discussed, that locking in the previous house is just not going to be good enough to provide us that kind of delivery of the range of issues we need to deal with. I think that ultimately become critical now. Also, the identity that we can enclose as a commanding or as a standard within the context of this planetary constitution becomes nothing less important. Driving this closer to the standard of what human is, rather than light departure from it, is certainly going to be another plus, another benefit for that we go with Project Olymp rather than Project England. I continue to be very maybe romantically, ideologically, which is nothing of rational, obviously, associated to connected to English history, but the fact is that we anyway need to continue to manage territories, to deal with issues on the territories. We still continue to be on this earth and to attend the territories. We are not going somewhere else. And this earth is enough beautiful to catch our attention and inspire us to continue to be problem-solving oriented. And if it is in question that we need to start fundamentally something new, well then let's do it on the land where it is more possible to do that and where historically is more correct to do that. Therefore, I'm going to say it loudly and clearly. I'm not returning home to return to Babylon, or to Babylon of Israel, or to Babylon and masonry of America or England, but to start a new project. That is Project Olymp. Can I start it? How far I will manage to start it is going to be, I believe, not just my question or my concern, but concern to any other human being that will find today puzzled with this scale of issues, as how I found them today existing on this planet. So no, I'm not going to find this personal game field, because it is about humanity. I'm going to assume that it is a challenge for humanity to provide its next stage answers. There is, however, another argument when you start continue thinking Britannia versus Olymp, and that is the terrain. Well, Olymp certainly gives us 3 seas on the view, and it is a wonderful, beautiful Mediterranean seaside, and the climate is gorgeous. And it is much more turbulent terrain when it comes to surrounding movements of the population and what kind of population lives surround. It is quite Asiatic, and it is very much problematic within its own issues. It is very much terrain that it is very much sliding in terms of preserving its own identity as well. Although I think that somehow it has been preserved to some extent. Although the recent challenges are much heavier. It is clear that we will be returning somehow into rebuilding some kind of walls, which are equally very important. I wouldn't go building such kind of unattractive, dull walls as it is being done with America versus Mexico. I would go with building much more like Chinese wall, for example, much more like fortress-like walls that would bring some kind of artistic dimension as well, but and would also bring this kind of national identity structure, national identity protocol as well. It is much more. It ended up to be more glorious, more historically glorious, more kind of reflecting. It is about the nation itself rather than what's outdoor. Or when you're bringing this kind of very dull modern walls, it is much more accent of what is out there than what is in. Well, when you're making fortress, you also dedicate yourself to making everything that is inside the fortress. It is much more like when you're building a house, and at some point become about what you build in the house. Well, in the way how these walls have been built versus Mexico in America, it is really suggesting about much more some kind of hostile relationship versus other people rather than your dedication to build your house without making other people to feel offended by it. And you know, when you build a house, your neighbors do not feel offended by the fact that you build a house. That is what it will need to be accomplished. That when you bring a wall of America versus Mexico, Mexicans do not feel offended. They don't end up to think it is because of them. But the message is, it's not because of them, but because I build my American house. And that's completely different message. And it's much more fair play. And the message is much more fair. You're not building it because of Mexicans. You're building it because of yourself. So I would be building such kind of fortress there if we are making Olymp. Then it's going to be that more like a fortress. Also, it is nothing urgent. I mean, it requires material resources. Also, maybe it should be urgent actually. In any case scenario, yes, I think it can be devoted time to think because it is important actually. That you bring some kind of dedication. That you, when you're building university, you have to focus to the teaching. When you're building whatever temple out there, that is for the purpose of what's going to happen next, some kind of activity. And that is in previous times it was literacy. Books have been written in our churches. Literacy started in churches. Most educated people have been gathering there. And so on and so on. If we are building today a political center, it's going to be about the politics that will need to be delivered there. So, we're also talking about fortress or about castle where the next reincarnations will need to return. As that is something missing from the territories there. And the accent is here not Mediterranean Sea, but Asiatic Sea or Asian Sea. I mean Asian Sea or Ionian Sea, I wanted to say. Here it is a battle between Ionian Sea alternative, Ionian Sea or Asiatic Sea of Greece. I think that Greece, Asiatic Sea is much more Asian Sea. Asian Sea is much more isolated. And it's more safe. Well, Ionian Sea is more open to the Mediterranean Sea and to all of the tourism happening there. So Asian Sea would be winning. And actually the real Olymp was exactly like that. It was much deeper in the coastline of North Greece. Now, Britannia, on the other side, does have its magical forest, but I really don't know how much we need magic now in times where it is about regulative and about law and order. I think it was really magical for previous history. And I can understand that why monarchies in Britannia have become so developed at some point of time. Because the nature there is just very convenient to craft in a human nature that level, inspire in a human nature much more connection with that energetic side of our existence. Also remind ourselves, we don't get energy from the sky directly, we are taking it via earth. Actually, our earth is catalyst, and we are actually connecting to energetic world via the earth. The energetic battery on the planet is the earth. Although we usually tend to think it is that we are getting it via the sky, it is actually via the earth. And that is why forest was vital in creation of such kind of magical, I wouldn't say abilities, but rather mind configuration. Now everyone is talking about magic as a matter of doing some things, like doing something to other people. In substance, I'm going to find it as a matter of creating of your own mind configuration. In substance is about becoming a richer person with all the level of comprehension that you bring, but also beauty somehow. This entire realm is very much about some kind of harmony and balance. And it is about, and that is where the beauty is. You see, all of the religious aspects, whenever is someone much more drawn towards religion, it is always about something being much more calm, much more some kind of deeper. It is basically about calmness always comes forward. It is about harmony. You see, their movements are much more slower. It is about harmony, about calmness, about some kind of soothing, and it is slower equally, but it is about this kind of beauty that you get within your overall configuration, and you start emitting it as well, that inner balance and harmony and calmness that you find in yourself, which is all that sainthood level, and then you start emitting it as well around, because that is how emission starts, when you basically first inhale it and become yourself such being. That is how I'm going to understand magic. That's what magic in substance says. It is actually that level of sainthood. And it's always about bringing it first within yourself. It regenerates and remake yourself first. And it is about that inner making of yourself, rather than you doing some kind of acrobatics like in circuses you have, like magicians are doing. No. Well, it's not about doing a magician level of something. It is sainthood protocol. But it has not been understood like that. So that is, I want to explain that when I point out the forest and I say magical, it is basically the sainthood protocol. That's the level of sainthoodness you generate, which was then connected with monarchy. And I have said many times that monarchy in substance is sainthood, because if it was not sainthood, that it would not become a monarchy. It has become monarchy because it was sainthood. Now the latest development indicates again the male over robust nature taking over and developing it into conquest, killing, slaughtering, and destroying everything around. But in substance, and that is why our people, especially in Serbia, the sainthood in Serbia, it has been recognized as substance to monarchy. In our, I have said many times, in our language, Monashenje is an order in a religious order. Monach is a religious order. However, these people have become, from my perspective, female, and the character of as creative as I am, as design driven, as beauty driven as I am. I found monarchy reflecting my character, not monastery, where you become stripped from life itself, but then you are like kind of emitting life. That is absurd. You're not going to emit life locked in a monastery. You emit life when you're in monarchy. And that is why I can't agree with further development. I think in our territories, it like stopped at the point of slavery. They continue to be rather enslaved in such kind of, and it is also male driven. And that is how far the beauty in the men goes. Obviously, it doesn't develop into gardens. It doesn't develop into salons. It doesn't develop into architecture. It doesn't develop into interior design. It doesn't develop into fashion. It doesn't develop into beauty. It doesn't develop into further social development and structure of the cities, which profoundly does have that kind of interior design approach. And you would notice, therefore, it is strongly present female energy. And a woman, actually literally a woman. Not male platform, but woman, actually woman. That is why I'm not going to go with religion, and also I'm not going to, I don't like when the money from such perspective end up being vulgarized. And when the money become vulgarized, and where everything that is around a world of monies, as it is design, building, interior design, fashion, lifestyle, gardens, cities, when somehow all that become diminished and devalued, by devaluing woman and protocol woman altogether. And then fashion become mocked around, design get mocked, everything end up being mocked around that is about the female. But then what is, when it comes to male locked in a monastery, looking at the sky and the clouds, it is like missing the earth, but then I am in charge. And then I am in the clouds. Or some people prefer to be in that kind of obscurity of a realm, should return in such obscurity of a realm and live. What's happening there is that they developed mental dimension rather than to live in the physical dimension, how this realm has been created. They somehow disrespect the physical dimension of this realm and go with making their own mental in clouds hierarchy, and become with that much of a big head, like in India as well, but completely neglecting and denying and disrespecting the material world in which they live, not attending it, equal as India, end up to be dirty, messy, unorganized, and so on, because they simply do not respond and do not connect to this realm. It might be correct that they would come from Syria, where obviously people are much more focused on building different format of realm, much more mental and imaginary, and obviously technocratic and technological, which then end up into consuming and sucking out the life of other people. And that is, I don't like that part of their identity as well, when all of their much more advanced mental dimension end up actually in the format of extracting the life and usurping the life of other people. There is nothing glorious in that, nothing saintly, and nothing advanced. I'm going to notice a woman, even a woman is the actual saint in all of this as the sainthood in woman becomes basically as a monarchy in a monarchy protocol, life related, and it is infusing that energy into enormous life related creativity. Again, the gardens, the houses, the fashion, the beauty, the living itself, and of course the regulative, the taste, the balance, the choosing the right balance in everything, giving access to family, raising kids, quality of education, quality of building cities, building the definition of honorable citizen. Here it is. I heard of the male world world of Serbia now talking about honorable citizenship and honorable citizens. They should hear my elaboration before they engage themselves as entitled on first account to speak about honorable citizens today. No man today can be left out of responsibility to bring that level of awareness that there was such thing as fraternity society for 2 millenniums that was suffocating and humiliating women for 2 millenniums. Every son of a mother today would understand, should be reminded that there are two parents that are needed to deliver a child: a man, a mother, and a father. And when you end up calling society of fathers, then you should know, you should have known, and you should know there was something profoundly wrong about it. Any man today should be reminded that women on this planet and their mothers on this planet have been living in slavery for 2 millenniums. Any man of this world today should be reminded before start talking of a society of men again. Any man should be reminded. A woman today will need to reset this world as the man has failed today. And a man today cannot talk about criteria of rebuilding society because fraternity of a man is still that dragon standing above our heads, threatening our future and the future of our kids. And a man today is not going to talk first about reform when a woman is discussing reform and delivering the most detailed analysis of the recent history of humankind. No man today can walk and talk first. Remember that well. No man today can walk first on this. And further to that, because that man fight me on daily basis by throwing me different females on the stage, I have to insist in a human what matters is that we do not exist as a numbers or as a group, but we exist as individuals. When I have said I am the author of my work and I have delivered the most detailed, the most informed analysis, not informed but intelligent analysis of the recent time in human history, I am the author. I have delivered it. It's not just a woman has delivered it, but a specific woman, a specific name, a specific author of this specific work today speaks up first on reform matters.